Hi, everyone. While we're just getting the slides loaded up, I'd like to point out that this was a three-way partnership. So we've invited up the National Dunn Development Corporation along with Solvest, who designed and built the system, to share, and they'll contribute their portion here shortly. In general, this talk, in spite of the very descriptive one we just heard, it's really a factor that we want to leave things better than we found them, which is a very difficult thing to do in the exploration space. But this partnership is an example of what that looks like by building capacity and adding new ways of doing things that last far beyond just one company's operation. So moving forward here, so just a brief introduction. The Net Zero Challenge in Exploration, this is one of the themes this afternoon, so I wanted to talk about what that looks like, a brief introduction to our solar system, the approach we've used to meet that challenge across a number of different areas, the solar system in detail. Ben will get up here to present and share on that portion. We'll also hear from NNDDC. Actually, those will be reversed. NNDDC will describe the partnership and what that looks like and how we have been able to get to the table together on this project. We'll talk about some other examples of how we are using this approach to innovation in exploration and conclude with some questions if we have the time. So we work in a very unique industry. It's both extraordinarily risky on the one hand by its very nature, but simultaneously extraordinarily risk averse. We have no revenue, we have limited assets, there's a constant cash burn, there's an extreme industry volatility that we have no control over as any individual company. And we have a short season, especially up here in the north. Finally, we have a responsibility to shareholders to provide value to them in spite of that. And so what that means is that exploration companies tend to avoid doing things, new ways of doing things when what's working is working. And that challenge is very real. When people give us money, it's coming out of one person's pocket, and they're entrusting us to find gold in the case of Snowline. And so to throw money at pet projects or things that aren't realizing value to shareholders is a problem. However, there is hope. There is ways to explore new industries or new ideas and new ways of doing things, and that's this solar project is an example of how one can do that while still being responsible with the funds that we've been entrusted to shepherd. So briefly, everybody wants to know what the deal is or why I'm up here. And this is our solar array. You can see it at our camp here. It's a 27 kilowatt of generating capacity supported by a battery bank. A control system monitors our consumption levels, the distribution, and the backup supported by the diesel generator, which still exists. In general, just for perspective, Snowline is located about 145 miles east of Mayo. That's about 230 kilometers by air. It's a fly-in camp. So we have some challenges when it comes to providing power. Speaking more broadly, though, in order to overcome that net zero challenge that I spoke about, there's really 4 steps that we as a company consider and we follow. The first is a commitment really to developing the Yukon's resources, and we're going to come back to what that means shortly. The second is making sure that we have space both internally and externally to discuss new ideas. And this subpoint is crucial in the nature of that risk-averse nature of the industry. One of the best and lowest hanging types of fruit to pick is applying existing proven technologies to a new space. And solar, with the leaps and bounds that have grown over the last little while, that's an example of that. Thirdly, and this is also crucial, we have to co-create. Snowline is not a power generating company. We are in the business of finding gold. So we have to work with others who can make it their business to do that. And that way we can form bridges and partnerships with those in our community. Fourthly, we find the experts to implement those ideas. And in this case, we're talking about Solvest, obviously. You heard me say earlier a commitment to developing Yukon's resources. And us as a company have started right from the ground up. We are founded by a Yukon family. And so when we want to develop the resources here in this territory, we're speaking of far more than just gold. We're talking about the people, the technology, the land, and finding ways to build and improve the relationships between all three of them and more. That's certainly not an exhaustive list of the resources that we have up here in the north. To leave things better than we found them, we really must advocate for all of them to be considered responsible explorers in the territory. And so when we make decisions, like the pursuit of solar, that's what we are doing. And lastly, it really takes a corporate commitment. And Craig, I see our chair is sitting here, and him and Scott have spent a lot of time, Scott being our CEO, developing our core principles. And these are things that we use to evaluate our day-to-day decisions on a regular basis. And those core principles at Snowline are fourfold. They are environmental respect, building community, and you see an example of what that can look like here on the stage. Going big, both from the geological, but also from the broader perspective, and doing it the right way. And so doing it the right way this is all together an example of those core principles and actions. So space for ideas. This is one of the most important aspects is you have to be able to talk things out. And I'm very comfortable bouncing new ideas. Some of them are crazy and others are not. In this case, I was unloading diesel in June 2021, and I don't know how many of you remember 2 years ago in June 2021, but it was hot, very hot. And here we are, like unloading 400-pound drums from an airplane, wheeling them around by hand, lifting them up, and I'm thinking, meanwhile, getting cooked by the sun. What are we doing here? We've got sun, there's power. This is about, I'm unloading these heavy drums. That must be possible. And so I wanted to find if I was crazy. And our CEOs, I talked about this with our CEO, Scott. He reached out to Yanni from NNDDC, and next thing you know, Solvest is in the conversation. We brought them into camp and monitored our power consumption for the remainder of the summer. Solvest built a model to identify the potential of our camp, and then we started exploring options of what implementation might look like, and really that research demonstrated that a three-way partnership was essential to the success of the program, and we'll hear shortly about how that partnership was formed and what it looks like. Well, we'll hear right now. So I'd like to welcome Julia Spriggs. Right now, Yanni Jokic is the CEO, and she's on a well-deserved vacation, and Julia's been filling in the meantime. So Julia.
Thanks, Steve. I'm Julia Spriggs. I'm Chief Reinvestment Officer for Natchez Development Corporation. We're the active business arm for the First Nation of the Natchez. We're focused on economic reconciliation and fostering a self-reliant and sustainable nation while upholding the well-being of our people, our land, and our waters. We're evolving how we do business. We believe that you can make good money doing good things. We want to work with people who want to shake things up, who aren't scared to challenge the status quo and do different. We're working on initiatives that go beyond the project or the transaction, but create meaningful, lasting relationships where co-creation can occur. To echo the sentiment in Scott Smith's presentation the other day, it's time for a paradigm shift. Indigenous participation in the resource sector isn't an opportunity, it's a right. As Steve said, this project in particular started with a conversation between our two CEOs and a common goal to reduce reliance on diesel. We've been working with Solvest since 2016, so it was a natural for Yanni to bring Ben into the conversation and introduce him to the team at Snowline. From there, this led to the installation of monitoring systems to ensure that Snowline had access to the data and the information required to make good decisions. Once the relationships were established, we could work on the details of the business arrangement. The DevCorp engaged Solvest to build and design the system. We obtained financial support from Yukon Government's innovative renewable energy initiative. The asset is now owned by our wholly owned subsidiary, Central Yukon Equipment Leasing LP, and is leased to Snowline on a 5-year term. This project aligned with NNDDC's values, allowing us to participate in the exploration industry in a good way. Our connection to the land is personal, and so projects like this are personal. We did something different, and I think that's been exciting for all three of us. Now it kind of feels like, ooh, what can we do next? We're building a relationship that fosters creativity and innovation, and that's something I want to be a part of. To me, this project is just the beginning. Like I said, or that was said, Yanni can't be here today, so I'll share some of her words on this project. Investments such as this are examples of how Indigenous businesses are leading the way in accelerating the green economy, and innovation such as this provides opportunities for such entities to become increasingly engaged in the mineral resource sector. We see this investment as just the first of many of its kind, and we are working towards building a fleet that can be deployed throughout their traditional territory. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Thanks, Steve. My name's Ben Power. I'm the CEO of Solvest. For those who aren't familiar with us, we're a Whitehorse-based and northern-focused renewable energy company working across the Yukon, but also the NWT and Nunavut. Over the past 8 or 9 years, we've grown to be the largest renewable energy company in northern Canada. We've got over 700 installations and about 17 megawatts of installed capacity across all 3 territories. We offer a complete service offering from design all the way through to O&M, really trying to be a complete partner in people's energy offerings rather than just doing one aspect of it. So some of the design considerations that went into the Snowline system, being so remote, there's a lot of challenges there, but also opportunities. So the opportunity is obviously fuel costs are very high when you're getting into a remote space and you have to either use a caravan or a helicopter to move fuel. But the same also applies to trying to get a renewable energy system into that setting. So one of the first considerations we made and changes was to use lithium-ion batteries to reduce the weight of the system by over 80%. Some of the trade-offs there were that lithium batteries cannot freeze, so they can't be left there over the winter. So that meant we needed to create a rapid assembly and modular system so that the batteries, as you can see in the lower photo, they're in kind of Pelican cases that can be wired up quickly when you get to site and taken out in less than a day, removed from site, stored over the winter, and put back in the summer. Another big consideration is sizing the battery bank. The battery bank actually provides more of the fuel savings than the solar does by allowing the generator to run very efficiently for the few hours of the day it is required on non-sunny days. Often in a typical camp, your generator has to be sized to run all of your core saws, your peak load at shift change, but meanwhile in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, you have very low load on that generator and it's burning a lot of fuel while delivering a very small amount of power, and it's actually damaging the generator over time and increasing maintenance. So making sure that battery bank is sized sufficiently to allow for an efficient charge and sufficient storage of all the solar is really key considerations. So this is more of a detailed overview of the system. There's kind of 3 key components. So the first is the solar array, which Steve referred to. It's a 27 kilowatt solar array built on 2 racking systems there. Really the only, I guess, unique thing about it is the racking used out there is designed to allow for installation on uneven terrain and frost heave. So if there's permafrost or frost heave shifting, the legs on the racking can easily be adjusted to re-level at each season, and it allows for a rather rapid installation as well. The power rack or power pack contains all the inverters and control systems necessary to convert the DC power from the solar array and the battery to AC power for the camp. It also contains an auto generator start system and makes sure that you're matching the output of the system to the consumption in the camp. And finally, the battery bank. It's a 121 kilowatt hour battery bank consisting of 36 lithium ion batteries. They're installed inside 6 of these different cabinets that can allow for rapid disassembly. So what were the results? Over a 78-day period, which is shorter than the designed operating season of 125 days, we offset 6,737 liters, or 18 tons of CO2. This achieved an 84% reduction in diesel usage during this period. When extrapolated out to a full season like we're next year, that would be close to 11,279 liters. Another significant benefit you'll realize from these systems is extended silent periods where the generator is no longer running in camp, particularly at night. You get a lot of quiet back in the camp. A couple improvements we're looking to make. The original power rack was designed to be and engineered to be slung in with a helicopter. We're now looking to make some modifications so that can fit inside of a caravan and further lower the travel costs for putting the system out. Secondly, the auto start system had some issues with it that we were troubleshooting, where it's designed to turn the generator on automatically, and that wasn't working properly at all times, so we're getting that fixed over the winter here.
Thanks. Yeah, those two things too. The point is, we think there's room to be gained as well here. So while it's a pretty nice number to start with, I think we can grow quite a bit. And anecdotally, that silent period might not sound like much, but once you have spent some time in a generator, silence normally is a panic situation where the generator is not running and some sprinting and everything stops and what's going on. To turn that into the default is a joy. Although that also took some learning curves. The first couple of nights, there was some gossip that got distributed amongst camp that I don't think the people who were whispering in their tents, or who weren't whispering in their tents, intended to share, but it was pretty funny for those of us who heard it. But the key here, and I want to emphasize this approach that I talked about, is not a one-off. I have concern that this will be perceived as a pet project or a token initiative, and that's not the case. We've been working very hard to find as many innovative approaches to doing things as possible to really change the way exploration is done in the territory. Some of you may have heard earlier the talk I was able to participate in with Yukon Seed and Restoration. We're looking at some enhanced regional wildlife surveys in the area because of the lack of data, and so we're in talks with Environment to really grow the general knowledge and an understanding of the region in which we operate. We've initiated baseline water monitoring at a very early stage in our project so we can more thoroughly understand the environment in which we're operating. And the cool thing is, by creating this space for partnerships and opportunities and opening that dialogue, there's been several other opportunities that have been presented, and it's not to say that they are happening yet, but the point is we're having the conversation and brainstorming new ideas and new ways of doing things. One of the ones that we've heard is, we got to thinking about the possibility of growing some of our own greens in camp, and there is a possibility of that. But then we had some conversations about Yanni and doing it in Mayo. It sounds like capacity is not capacity, but volume is a question about we need to reach certain thresholds, and that opened up the conversation well with Vic Gold and Banyan and Snowline and other operators in the territory. Perhaps we can reach that threshold where there's freshly grown vegetables in Mayo, and that's going to take more conversations, but the key is you have them. And we may find more opportunities for new innovative ways. That's the goal, and that's how innovation happens. And by co-creating with others in this space, that's how we can change the way things are doing and overcome some of those challenges that I introduced at the beginning of the talk. And a note on partnerships here within the junior space. By and large, we are not competing on how efficiently our operations run or efficiencies within our operations. So this data that we're collecting here, the work we've done with YSR, we're open books. We are eager to hear from the other juniors in this space and share what we've learned, and hopefully there's some ideas that can be propagated amongst the other juniors, so that as a region, Yukon can be looked to as really a global trendsetter for advancing the way we explore for minerals, and we're hopeful that those conversations will start to happen as well, and who knows what other innovative things we'll be able to come up with collectively. So please, reach out, ask, talk to us. Ben sort of undersold some of the benefits to solar. I mean, when he was telling us yesterday when they started up Solvest, the most obvious business case, and this is 8-9 years ago, the most obvious business case for solar in the territory was mining. And yet here we are 9 years later with, I think, 17 megawatts installed across the north, and really, one junior who's tested it. And we need to change that. And I think there's lots of different ways that we can do that. And so I'd urge you to speak with Ben as well, whether it's about solar or the efficiencies gained by batteries or more. And so in conclusion, we've made a commitment to the Yukon. We want to develop its resources beyond just the mineral potential. We applied new technology, proven technology to new spaces. We co-create with partners, and we want to share our results. Thanks.